Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rational Female Podcast. And today I am here live by myself. So, yeah, let's just see how it goes today. So, I'm just going to be sitting here for the next hour, and anybody who wants to ask me any questions about anything really, just feel free to drop them in the chat and I will respond to them. So, yeah, this was kind of impromptu. I was thinking about doing this for a little while. I liked the idea of, doing a stream alone so you guys can maybe get to know me a bit more so we can just talk about whatever. And yeah, so I guess I'll just begin by thinking about, what I've been up to recently. Today is Tuesday, and every Tuesday since the end of December, I would say, I have been filming three actually videos on my channel. And actually, I think I initially was doing Sunday because I wanted it to coincide with the regular kind of weekly stream, because usually on a Tuesday evening UK time, I stream with three other lovely people. And yeah, I just really I film my videos. I usually script them in the week. So it's a bit of a process. I have like hundreds of video ideas, a bit less now because I have exhausted quite a few of them. But yes, it kind of went from like 300 to maybe 150, so that's cool. But but yeah, I usually film, so I script my videos in the week and then I edit them with ChatGPT. I basically not upload, but I copy and paste the script into ChatGPT. It edits it for me, and then I edit it again myself because sometimes ChatGPT says stuff that I'm not necessarily, happy with or just want to tweak. And yeah, I basically that's kind of my style really. By the way, does my mic sound okay? Just because I can't hear what my mic sounds like, I just hear myself. But yeah, so yeah, that's my process. And then Tuesday, I get up, I have my breakfast, like I do every morning, shower, blah 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 blah, and I film two videos next to me. You can't see, but I'm at my desk and my bookshelf is right next to me. Yeah, I have my lights, I have my DJI mic mini, and yeah, it's just good. I pump them out, and I usually edit one on the same day. So the afternoon after I filmed my two, I was just starting to edit one that I filmed today. So I asked you guys what you wanted to see next because I have so many ideas, and it's good to get to ask what you guys would like to see. But the one that I chose two, one on our cultural obsession with attractive women and female beauty, and then another one which is about Titanic and male sacrifice. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I just kind of it's good to kind of have this to do. It's good to get all these ideas out here. I also changed my hair. I decided not to condition it like I normally do. I just left it because I got like this curly hairbrush and yeah. But yeah, no, YouTube is fantastic. I mean, I'm really, happy, that I'm reaching out to people. I'm really happy to be collaborating with other people. Um, yeah, I'm just glad really. But yeah, feel free if anybody is actually watching today. Feel free to drop your, any questions that you might have in the chat. I have the chat set so only people who are subscribed can comment because I don't like people who okay, somebody just commented on a post I wrote saying, you probably know about George at the Tin Man. If you don't, I suggest you make contact. Yes, I have heard of the Tin Man. I'm familiar with them. I think I must have reached out to them at some point. I think the problem is because they're quite big, like they've got a lot of people that work for them. But yeah, I would love to talk to the Tin Man. I really respect what they are doing, for men. I think it's very important. I have so I talk about this in the videos usually. There's this subreddit that I mod called Women's Advocates, and the idea behind it is to kind of have a space where we kind of talk about female issues or anything that concerns women, but not feminist. Because, it's kind of sad how feminism has this monopoly on women effectively. It kind of has monopolized anything involving female hardship, female success. And that's something that really sucks about feminism. So it's good to have a space where women can, or men and women, where we can talk about, anything concerning women, and where we can kind of, just, I guess, yeah, because I'm tired of, pro female being called, affiliated with pro feminist. I think that's really rubbish. And I think that, it's very important to have a kind of alternative view to that. We need a space where we can say, look, not all women are feminists. Not everything that concerns women, not everything that's a women's issue needs to be a feminist issue. So that sucks. I think that we need to kind of get more used to saying that um issues concerning women, or anything that is about women, doesn't have to be about feminism. Because feminism, it's not really a, oh, we're all pro women, as I say a lot on this channel, what we talk about here. It's not really this kind of pro girl power or pro female empowerment movement or ideology. It's more of a kind of, it's basically saying that women are an oppressed class, and this grievance towards being born female, I think it gives women a chip on our shoulder for having been born female. So that's kind of rubbish. And I think that feminism is fundamentally, it's not good. It's nothing to do with celebrating women, with helping women. It's got nothing really to do with saying that, women can be, you know, doing positive things in the world. All it does is it just makes people feel like if you're a woman, then you're somehow oppressed, life is horrible. And I think that sucks. So yeah, I really don't like that. Um yeah, I think that it's a very sad way to look at the world, this idea that women are somehow subjugated by men, that women are some oppressed class. And I don't know. I think that it's just really, it's not good. It's not a good way to view the world. It's not a good way to kind of think. It's not done anything positive for women from my standpoint. It's not really had any impact on, women's kind of positive effects on the world. Yeah. But anyway, I'm just talking. Um yeah. This is kind of nice, just solo chat. I don't really do these because I've been doing a lot of streams lately. My recent one with Janice, that she was doing quite well. It's got like over 1.5k views, I think now. Anyway, VJ fan, hello. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you here. Yeah. So if you got anything you want to ask me or want to chat to me about, then let me know. It's getting kind of bright and warm now in the UK. That's cool. It's not as yeah, I am from India. Okay. Nice. I'm actually half Indian. My mom is Indian. So yeah, I've got Asian blood. Uh yeah. I like a lot of Indian movies. I watched this movie because I'm a big film buff. I'm always talking about films and television all the time. I've got this movie that I've been thinking about a lot called Lagan. It's a fantastic movie. It's an Indian movie, and it's basically, I think it's such a great film because it's got like the best films for me are ones where you have strong characters and positive characters, but there's no kind of ideological framing. And look, it's called Lagan, Once Upon a Time in India. And the best character in that movie, I would say, is actually a woman, and she is very, very kind. She's very, very gentle. She's a lovely, lovely person, smart. And it's basically about this group of Indian farmers who they are fighting the British kind of colonizers, or colonizing. They're not like, how do I explain this? They're like this kind of the British colonizers within the settlement. Yeah, the right term. And yeah, they all kind of the farmers are basically fighting for their independence in the settlement, and they have a cricket match. So it's very interesting. I used to watch it all the time as a kid because my mom used to make us watch a lot of like Bollywood movies or Indian movies, so that was cool. But yeah, Lagan, I think, there are a lot of movies that I consider to be masterpieces. So edit one of the videos I filmed today was on Titanic, which is a film I consider to be a masterpiece. It's actually my favorite film of all time. And yeah, I think these movies they say something about humanity, about the human experience. They say something about our desire for goodness, something about our desire for all these kind of values. I think all stories they deal with the core essence of being human. Okay, so what's we happening here? In India has very cruel anti-man laws. One is fake promise of marriage, grape law. This law for punish the men who break up love. Yeah, no, I've heard about this. Yeah, there was a so I don't know how you pronounce her name. I think it's Deepika Bardwaj. She's like this Indian female filmmaker, and she was talking about, men's rights and these kind of laws against men. And I think it's very sad, it's very bad because I, for a long time, have heard about how India is a terrible place to be a woman. Um, but I don't know, the men's issues are quite sad. So from Sachina, we got, have you watched Durandar? No, I do not know what that is. No, I've not heard of that. I've watched quite a few Indian films. I don't remember all of them. There's one I watched as a kid that made me cry called Devdas with Aishwarya Rai, who is such a beautiful, incredible. Yeah, she's gorgeous. But yeah, I liked my favorite Indian film. I say is Lagan. So many men's life destroyed by this law. Yeah, it's the same in the UK. It's the same in the West too. It's awful. I feel very sad. There's this guy that I follow on YouTube. I follow quite a few creators. His name is Dad Mode and Dark Mode. I've actually reached out to him about collabing. That is the one that is booming right now. Okay, I'll have a look at it. Oh, hey, Thomas. How much worse do you think gender relations in the UK will get before they get better? Wow, yeah, that is. Oh God. By the way, shout out to our friend Blue Orange 22. He does regular streams on this channel with me and some other great people. I don't know. I think that honestly, with the way things are going with this like anti-misogyny law, the misogyny, yeah, it's right. I can't talk properly. I'm just a bit worn out because it's a long day. Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, I think because of the internet and internet culture, I think things are going to get worse before they get better. But I have seen this rise of people on the internet. Like, it's really hard to find, but I found a few women. So, in Cypher Coaching, she is another lady like myself, though she more specifically talks about dating, but she's, anti feminist, and we have very similar views. There's also this lady called Gabriella Wolfie, Gabby. But yeah, she's a therapist, a licensed trauma therapist. But yeah, no, I think that honestly, it's just going to get worse because, as the gentleman from India said, it's just going to get worse and worse because, where we're just seeing this rise of hatred and animosity between the sexes. And I think it's awful. I think that nothing good has come out of this. And I think that, this just popped into my head with Trump because, I mean, no one said anything about Trump. I don't really talk too much about Trump because I have a massive opinion on the guy. But I think that with someone like Trump, because he's so polarizing, you end up just fueling the tension between people that's already existing. So I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon. But yeah, this YouTuber Dad Mode and Dark Mode, he's an interesting guy. Yeah, he is someone I'd love to collab with if I could. But yeah, I emailed him. I emailed in Cypher Coaching. I actually emailed Gabriel. I'm always contacting people because I always want to talk to people as many as possible. So any book recommendations on scientific understanding of sex differences? I have a link in the description called Anti-Feminist Books. The one I always recommend to people is this book. This is a fantastic book, The End of Gender. Yeah, it's brilliant if you can see it properly. Yeah, My background is blurred. But yeah, The End of Gender by Dr. Deborah So. That's fantastic. I also have this, The Female Brain. Ooh, here we go. This is a bit more hard science. I actually haven't finished this book. I need to read it again because it was a few years ago that I started it. Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah. You're welcome. So, The End of Gender is the best book that I have read on gender relations because it's very simple and accessible. And she talks a lot about, transgenderism. She talks about the science behind it. So it's not like, because I think the problem now, this trans thing, and when I say trans thing, I don't mean people who are legitimately suffering from a medical disorder and they have a legitimate illness called gender dysphoria. I have, that's fine. I mean the whole the ideology behind it. It's become so it's become like this. It's just rooted in pseudoscience and it's making people just hate each other. It's fueling all this tension. I mean, people in this country on the internet, that's what I see mainly people talking about so much now, this gender ideology. I mean, there's this lady Posey Parker, she's quite big in the UK, and she talks a lot about the state of the gender thing, but I think she's a bit more I don't really agree with her worldview because I'm someone who, if someone is born a man and they become a woman and they're over 18, I'm not against calling them a woman in the sense of if they look, say, like me, like they look female, but they're biologically male, that's none of my business. I'm not against calling them their preferred sex. I have a problem with someone who looks like me, who clearly looks female, and says, I'm a man. So that's my problem. I have no problem with actual genuine transsexuals who are medically transitioning, who are suffering from a serious illness. And, I think Deborah So, from what I understand, she's got a similar view to me. She's not actually anti-trans people. She's what you would call a trans medicalist. And it's this idea, the viewpoint that transgenderism is it's a medical condition, it's an illness, not something that you just choose. But yeah. So Afghanistan men's have group bias on their gender. Other countries, women have group bias on their gender. Yeah, I mean, Afghanistan, I'm pretty sure is a Islamist country. I should know that. Why don't I know that? But yeah, I think the problem is with a lot of Middle Eastern countries and these countries that have these Islamist regimes, they're basically pushing this very chauvinistic attitude, and it's not compatible with the kind of Western, kind of secular, liberal, democratic values that we have, which are more about, not saying, I think the problem is those countries is too extreme because of religion and religious theocracy. Yeah, that's another touchy subject, but I think that, religion in general causes way more problems than it solves. I don't believe we should get rid of religion, by the way. I think that's too extreme. But I think, because I was thinking about this a lot last night, that religion, I think religion should kind of be, a private thing. It shouldn't be something that we push on to everyone. It should be more it's your private practice between yourself, maybe your community, your family. But I don't think it should be pushed on to the whole country. I think countries are better governed by, reason and secularism, because religion, it just is subjective. And this is exactly what's the problem with this gender stuff. It's pseudoscience. There's no place for that in running a society, because if you're saying it's this God's law, what's God? That means that's a different thing to so many people. It's not an objective thing. You can't touch it. It's not a tangible thing. So yeah, I've got some video ideas actually. I mean, I don't want to talk too much about religion on my channel because I understand that a lot of people who watch me are religious, and I don't want to suddenly start, becoming contentious, because I think that, because it's a thing, people in my family have said that as well, not to talk about religion too much, because the whole, feminism, gender issues, men versus women, that's pretty universal. Most people, regardless of religion or background, can get behind that. But when you start talking about, religion, or I'm conservative, or I'm a Democrat, or Labor, or left, this, green, that, it just creates division. So Yeah, I mean, I have pretty strong views against religion because of personal, very, very serious personal reasons and personal history with like spirituality and other things. I shouldn't say it like that. That's rude. Spirituality, whatever that word means. But yeah, I think that like I generally try and ground myself in a very kind of evidence based worldview, and I do read a lot. Actually, I want to talk in the future because I have a lot of books on like criticizing feminism on my e-reader, but I bought all the physical copies because I was having this horrible thought like what if I don't know, what if like something happens to all these books? What if they disappear? What are you saying, BJ? Feminists was very fearful of Islam. In Mexico, feminists destroyed a church, but they never destroy a mosque. Yeah, I mean, yeah, feminists and Islam. I think a lot of feminists, they're very pro-Islam. From my understanding, a lot of them just seem to say that Islam is a religion of peace. They say that, there's nothing wrong with Islam. It's just good for women. I don't know, man. Feminists, in my experience, they're not harsh enough when it comes to Islam. They're very, very anti-Christianity, which is interesting because those two religions are not that different. They're both Abrahamic. They're very anti-Christianity. They say Christianity, like there's this lady I follow called Casey Malone. I watch a lot of YouTubers, and she is a Christian. No, she's an ex-Christian, ex-evangelical Christian, and she's a left-wing atheist feminist, which is fun. And yeah, she's always talking about how terrible Christian nationalism is. I mean, I'm not American, so I don't know what the situation is there regarding that. I will say, though, that I think Islamism is much, much more serious, at least in Europe, which includes the UK, than Christian nationalism. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I think that Islamism, I mean, it's kind of sad we're having to use that term, isn't it? But the Islamist extremism that we've been seeing rise over the last kind of few decades, I guess, in the West, I think that not enough is being done to really tackle it. I think it's wonderful that the Iranians are really, speaking out, fighting for their freedom. I don't really see the Western feminists talking about that. I think that's a massive complaint from people who are, you know, not feminist, anti-feminist, whatever. It's a massive, massive criticism. It's like, why aren't these women out there protesting against things like FGM, against things like just the treatment of women in these countries in general? They just talk about how terrible Christianity is. Christianity is a patriarchal religion, blah blah blah. So I don't know. It's ridiculous. Mm, yeah. Hmm. I'm always drinking. Always drinking something. This is water and juice. Yeah, I haven't had an alcoholic drink in over 50 days. Anyway, so yeah, I think that like regarding the position of women and men in other countries, I mean, most of the stuff like the studies that I usually reference in my videos, it's usually Western. It's largely Britain and the US because I think, and my mom was saying this to me as well, like Britain and the US are quite similar culturally in the sense that there's a similar, the issues happening in America with gender is quite similar to the UK. The difference is the UK is just a tiny country, whereas America is a huge country. So that's the difference. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I think that like feminism itself is a lot like a religion anyway, because it's this big authoritarian ideology that frames all of the world's problems and all of human history as a story of, male oppression and female suffering. And that worldview is very, very bad because all it does is reinforce tensions between the sexes. I don't think that there's anything positive that can come out of a worldview like that at all. I think that if you've got that kind of worldview, you're just going to end up with a broken society. So, yeah, no, I think that it's really bad. Um, I really like the idea of, you know, the I mean, I don't want to because it's not really my place, but I think that the fellow who comes on the channel sometimes, Tim Golich, the idea of gender equalism, there's something positive about that. But what I'm doing as well myself with my subreddit, women's advocacy. So a kind of, not feminist, but pro women alternative. And I think it requires women to take a lot of accountability and to take a lot of responsibility. Janice, that's what Janice talked about a lot on our stream the other day. I think women are gonna really need to get a grip and get it together. I mean, I'm so happy that there's people out there who are talking about this because I mean, I'm not that old. I'm only 28, but I'm sure like 20 years ago when I was a kid, a child, that it wasn't the norm to talk about this because there was, we didn't have social media. It wasn't like people were talking about this very seriously. And there's people who have been talking about gender issues now in terms of the anti-male aspects and the effects that feminism has on women. People talking about this for like decades. Warren Farrell, Myth of Male Power, that came out like in the 70s, I think. So yeah, I don't know. I think that it's going to be quite a while. I mean, if I was able to live long enough to see society really, really change, that would be quite wonderful, provided I don't die young. But yeah, if I make it to like my 70s, 50 years or so, it'd be pretty cool to see if things have actually changed because there's a lot of problems and this bias against men. So who was I watching again? Yes, it was Dad Moondog when he was talking about the family courts and the family court system in the US. I imagine the UK is very similar. It's very kind of rigged against men, which is terrible. Because it's a feminist based system. It's gynocentric, and when we have a gynocentric society, that's actually bad for women as well. Yeah. Men have a negative, uncontrollable desire for lust. Women have a negative that is group bias on their gender. I see so many men style against family, low comments. Yeah, I get the gist of what you're saying. Like women are very bright. There's in-group bias, women have towards other women. That's basically gynocracy. I went to this talk a few years ago, in late 2023, before I was in hospital, and yeah, it was about gynocracy. This idea of this guy, he published this book talking about this idea. I mean, he was saying a bunch of bizarre stuff, like about, I think he was a bit of a conspiracy theorist. He was talking about David like style soft aliens and yeah, stuff I don't want to really think about. But he spawned the idea of gynocracy, the idea that society has become so biased in favor of women. And I don't know if that's any good for women either. Like women, for example, most women statistically do not like working for a female boss. They don't like having a female boss. Women use in group tactics to exclude other women, relational bullying. Women, are happy to sleep with other women's husbands or boyfriends. This idea that women will stick together and girl power is a lie. Like, and this isn't to say that women can't have genuine friendships, by the way. Like, I have some wonderful female friends. But I've had a lot of negative experiences with women. I was saying yesterday actually to my therapist that I think that if I talk about bad experiences I've had with like a male romantic partner or a guy I was dating, people will say things like, "Oh well, sorry, wrong thing." People, sorry, I'm getting mixed up. If I talk about bad experiences I've had with a male romantic partner, people will kind of just say, "Oh, he's terrible." But if I say, "Oh, a woman did that," I'll be like, "Oh well, like they won't really react, or they just kind of have this blank face. So if I say, I had this female friend who did this, this, and this to me, which is terrible, there's no reaction. There's no accountability. Where's the accountability? Like, why we only seem to vilify men? So that really gets on my nerves. And I think that we've got this this cultural bias towards viewing women as the good guys all the time. Women are always in the right. Women are always right. It's even a joke. Like, we've seen those jokes about, you don't argue with your wife. I'm the wife. I'm always right. If I say I'm fine, I'm not fine. It's just stupid. I can't stand it. I really don't. So I want to see, some positive female advocacy that doesn't tell women they're victims, that actually makes women behave properly in a way that encourages, responsibility and virtue, good character, and also not being terrible to other women. Because a lot of women are not very nice to other women. We even see this with the red pill female influencers. I mean, God, so many of the other, a lot of these female anti-feminist YouTubers, big ones, a good obvious example is Just Belly Things, that they don't really, they're just kind of using their platform as a way to tear women down. And that's a very, very feminine thing to do. It's this in-group, this me versus you thing. So yeah, I think that like it would be good to see a more unity between the sexes. It would be good to kind of see more, less feminist leaning narrative in pop culture, in social media, on the internet, in books. I came across this other YouTuber who I also emailed. She was talking about how, she said they always say modern feminism. Like, feminism hasn't always been terrible, but yeah, she was like, modern feminism is ruining literature. She was talking about some books. Actually, she referred to a book which I actually really enjoy, Sally Rooney, Conversations with Friends. I read a lot. If you watch my videos, you'll see I have so many books in the background. But yeah, she was, I really noticed that she was talking about other kind of books where it's like the woman is just cheating and it's just kind of seen as okay, like it's funny. So the woman wants to have an affair, or it's seen as like empowerment. You know what I mean? Like, the woman is having an affair, she's married, she's cheating on her husband, and it's like, oh, I'm empowered, or oh, it's just, it doesn't matter. It's really bad. Like, if men behave in that way, we say this is wrong. I mean, I think infidelity in general shouldn't be celebrated. I don't see why would you celebrate being unfaithful to your spouse. I mean, shouldn't be celebrating that anyway. So we have this cultural tendency um to kind of frame things as men are at fault and women are given a free pass. There's an excuse. Like, this channel I used to watch for years, The Take, which I did a video on. I watched like a lot of their videos. Like, honestly, I watched almost all their content for like maybe 2-3 years, possibly longer. So I'm very familiar with their work. The Take, they were very much just saying that like they framed all their film and television analyses, and eventually it got to a point where it was like, even if they're talking about the worst kind of female, like they've done videos on characters like Amy Dunn from Gone Girl, or Regina George, Livia Soprano, like a terrible example of I'm watching The Sopranos now, I'm on season 2, and she's just awful. Janice is terrible too. There's some really bad women on television. It's not a joke. They just constantly frame it as if it's a woman, then there's some reason why she's behaving like that. So there's never any kind of sense of saying that the woman could be at fault. There's never any kind of sense of saying that the woman may have done something wrong. There's never any sense of saying that, the woman, something happened, that it was actually the woman. But yeah, I don't know. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Very passionate about this. So for those who don't know, I started talking about feminism on the internet. Actually, I've been blogging about feminism since 2017, and I wasn't a feminist anymore at that point. I stopped being a feminist in 2016 when I was 18, but I I I kind of had this view that modern feminism, third wave feminism, was where feminism has gone wrong. And I remember, like, I was talking a lot to this lady on my blog, and we used to just correspond back and forth. And she actually really opened me up. Like, all these books I've read now, like one I read called The Flip Side of Feminism by Suzanne Venko. It's very interesting. And when you actually start to read more, it makes you think a lot very seriously. So I started making videos talking about feminism in 2022 under the channel Non-Feminist Gal. And yeah, my view was very, not dissimilar to my view now. I was a bit more accepting of some things that I've now become a bit more critical of. And I don't know, for me, it was about raising awareness and also having like serious conversations about this because this is really ridiculously bad. I mean, yeah, I think this is just awful. I think that anything that is going to stir up division against people. When I used to go, so yeah, that was 2022. Then 2023, I started going to Speaker's Corner in London. Yeah. Why do you think society insists on men taking a traditional role, but not for women, and think it's not unfair? Are they trolling or just delusional? Okay, I need to read that one more time. So, society insists on men taking a traditional role, but not women taking a traditional role. Okay, is that what you mean? So, yeah, I think that men are very much still expected because the thing is, right? And somebody actually probably said this to me with feminism, men were still expected to behave in the way they've always behaved. Women changed, so men were still upholding the male role. So men actually haven't changed in terms of men are still the providers, protectors, paying on a date, taking on the dangerous jobs, expected to have more money, blah, 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 blah. Women are the ones who have changed. So men didn't change. Men have accommodated women by becoming more feminized, by becoming more softer, which is why a lot of, men now, my generation, a lot of women can't find a husband or a long-term boyfriend. Women, um, women have changed. Women have become more, I hear a lot of women talk about this. Women who aren't feminists. They say women have become very masculine, very catty, it's awful. You see the way some of these women, and a lot of women are not feminists. I think actually a lot, because the other lady, Yana, who comes onto the channel too, she calls herself non-feminist majority, and she says that the majority of people are not feminist. I do think that in terms of like deep down, most people are not feminists because they do think that this feminist worldview is delusional. This antagonism and hostility between the sexes that exists, it's not good. So I think that it's very bad because, men were still expected to uphold their role, but then women suddenly came into the workplace and en masse. And I'm not against women being in the workplace. I've never said that. Women have always worked historically. What I'm against is the emasculation of men and the kind of sense of female entitlement and narcissism that's come with it. And also, there's no gratitude, there's no acknowledgement of, men's sacrifice to give women what we have today. Like, for example, birth control, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. For various reasons, people use birth control for various reasons. Some people maybe don't want to have children at all. Some people might be married. Some people may have had 4 children. They don't want more children. I'm not against birth control. Actually, I think birth control is a very, very practical way to prevent more abortions. But yeah, men haven't really changed. Women have changed. I think I've heard that from other people older than me, because I talk to people about this all the time. Yeah, so I think that because we have this rise now of this mindset, women still expect men to do everything. I mean, it's a rough one because, like, for example, I heard somebody say this to me, that their son, basically their 19-year-old son, was dating this girl, and she like spent hundreds of money on him, and then expected her to do the same. So I think it's a bit weird. Like things are getting. That's why I think things are not improving. Things are just getting worse. Men are kind of. There are women now expecting men to do all kinds of things for them. But also at the same time, there's women who are not having very high standards at all. There's women who are not really getting much fulfillment from relations with men. I mean, in my experience of dating for the last 10 years, it's been like, woo. Most men pay, but I'm quite polite person, generally speaking. Yeah, that's another topic. But I think the way things were for a long time, they were kind of set to ensure, that people would actually pair up and get married and have children. And now, because everything is just all over the place, people don't really want to do that. Um, it's also as a case where, like, what does one mean when they say traditional roles? Because, when you say, oh, I think I just pressed the mic by mistake. This idea of traditional roles, when we say traditional roles, what do we actually mean? Like, do we mean, for example, man works, woman stays at home? Because that works if you're having children. What's the traditional role in a relationship where it's just the two of you, no kids? Like, is it a case whereby the man is the one who pays, the man takes care of the finances, the woman cooks and cleans? I mean, I was in a relationship. I've been in two kind of serious relationships. They weren't very long. And one partner I was with, it was like 5 years ago. I was kind of living with him for a bit, like a few months. And because I didn't have a conventional job, for various reasons, he worked, he went out to work, and I just stayed home. I would cook, I would keep the flat clean. It wasn't flat, right? It wasn't like where I live. It was like a room. But yeah, I mean, I love cooking. Now I'm living alone now, like permanently. I was actually, most of my life I've lived with family. I really, really love to cook. I think everyone should cook though, like cooking, because the thing is as well, like, you gotta eat. You can't just be spending money on takeout. But yeah, it's funny actually, because anyone who comes to my flat, like if anyone's coming over, I'm gonna cook for them. Actually, my brother said that he wants to come over tomorrow. And it's like, if he's coming over, it's like, okay, I better make sure there's food. It's just, I think it's a very like, yeah, I don't know. If someone comes to see me, I always make them food. That's probably also because of the way I was brought up. But yeah, I think that, somebody also said to me years ago, like, because a common feminist thing is like women had to depend on men financially. Men had to depend on their wife to look after their children, to keep the house clean, and also to not poison them when cooking for them. So men and women had to depend on each other as a team. That was the point. The point was that men and women work together as a team. It's not like, it was all a marriage or any kind of relationship is supposed to be a team thing, a team effort, it's a team dynamic. So yeah, I don't know. Relationships now are just a mission. I mean, I think that like nobody really knows what they're doing now. I mean, especially people in their 20s and 30s, we're all completely lost. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know where we're going really regarding relationships, regarding marriage, dating, children. I mean, we've all seen this study saying that, like, I can't remember what it was. I showed it in another video. It predicts that like X amount of women are going to be single and childless by like I think 2030. So yeah, I mean there are women also who choose not to marry or have children for various reasons. I think that's fine. If a woman chooses not to get married or have kids, maybe because she wants to just focus on a career, like there's some women, like for example, I've referenced this in other videos, Rosalind Franklin, Grace Hopper, and Ayn Rand, all of them didn't have children. Yeah. Hey man, how's it going? I recognize you. There's a huge lack of self-awareness, and I think a lot of us aren't in touch with how we respond. But it's also made harder by people who attach themselves to ideologies I don't know how we even reached this either, my friend. I have no clue. Yeah. It's terrible. There's this lack. I think the lack of self awareness is because society now, this rise in this. Okay, this word is very overused, but let's not use the word narcissism. Let's use the word self indulgence. Like for example, now this rise of self help. Um, I think that has become a whole industry. Therapy and actual self help. Self help can be positive. Self indulgence, in the sense of like relentless self indulgence, you know, okay, this is because I'm watching The Sopranos, but like Janice Soprano, she's a very good example of this, of someone who's constantly trying to improve themselves, but it's very much, there's no self awareness, there's no actual self reflection. So I think also because people now, their identity is based around an ideology. So if your whole identity is based around, I am a feminist, I am non binary, I am genderqueer, I mean, where's the humanity? See, I'm even thinking to myself, I wonder if I've even subconsciously at times based my identity around being anti feminist. Probably in certain contexts, or yeah, I mean, when I've been, functioning normally, I would say I don't usually tend to say to people, I am an anti feminist. I usually tend to say, I am a writer, I'm an author, I write books. I'm from London. Um, I don't know. The self improvement we see is more akin to hustle culture. I rarely see actual reflection of their engagement with it. Yeah, hustle culture. This is all emblematic of this modern age we're in. This hyper real age. So there's this YouTuber I watch. I don't know if any of you guys keep talking about the YouTubers, but I spend a lot of time watching stuff because I don't have much else to do besides make videos, read, write my book, work on my fiction novel. But yeah, this YouTuber I really love. I've been watching him for years. He is a great guy. Cole Hastings, very, very big channel. He should be hitting, hopefully, I want him to hit 1 million within the next few years. Yeah, he's always talking about the kind of like, he's a self-help YouTuber, but he isn't kind of just feeding the flame. He actually has original insights. OMG, watch him as well. Yeah, he's great, isn't he? Yeah, me too. I love Cole Hastings. Yeah, I'm gonna find a husband like him. He's actually married now. He made a video, he was talking about how he got married. But he is very interesting because he that's my sense of humor. He's very interesting because he uses a lot of analysis and he uses a lot of like hard evidence, and he also does like personal anecdotes, like he talks about his breakups, he talks about his own difficulties. I really like his style. I think he's fantastic. Yeah, I haven't watched him as much. I just watch him from time to time now. But anytime I watch any of his videos, like I think actually his videos seem to get better and better. Because some YouTubers, they just go downhill after a few years, but he seems to just get increasingly better, which is awesome. Yeah, so I actually made a list of all my favorite YouTubers because there's so many. Well, actually, I don't know what's so many. I think maybe 10. I wrote a list on Twitter. By the way, if you guys aren't following me on Twitter, you totally should. Or X. I don't call it X. Stupid name. Yeah. I can't remember where it is, but I have so many YouTubers I love to watch. I know women have it bad too, but sometimes it seems to be of their own choosing, like certain rich famous celebrities like Beyonce and Nicki Minaj, who marry terrible men. So I think yes and no. I think sometimes I touched on this in one video. I think, yeah, I was talking about women and bad men. So I think that sometimes a woman can actually be generally naive because there's a thing where it's like women don't always know the man is bad. Actually, my dad has said this to me quite a few times. Like women can't always read men because men can lie. That's a very, fatherly thing to say, of course. Like men can lie, men can be deceitful, and the woman can be naive. But sometimes the woman is very aware that she's in a toxic relationship. So I use fiction a lot to make my points because it's easy for me to digest the thing. Sex in the City, you've got Carrie Bradshaw, who's a terrible person. She's very entertaining. And she's obsessed with Mr. Big, and he's awful. So, like, she's obsessed with this guy who is terrible, and they do get married. And, so it's true. Some women do like bad men. Some women don't want a man like Aiden. They want a man like Mr. Big. Because Aiden is a very good guy. And, this is very reinforced in popular culture. I mean, I'm trying to think of an actual real world example. There probably is one. I've heard people mention Mickey because I'm in this politics group, this like meetup group. We meet every week. I haven't been actually for, I didn't go last week, but yeah, somebody's saying something about Nicki Minaj because I'm not so up to date on like on like what's actually happening. I mean, I see things like on Twitter or on YouTube, but I'm not so like down with pop culture. I'm more kind of into, I don't know, I analyze things I'm already familiar with. If a woman loves a bad man, that says a lot about her character. All this talk about women want bad boys, let's go finish last. This gets lost in the mix. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk about myself too much. For those who may or may not know, I was very ill 2 years ago, and I was very delusionally obsessed with the most famous controversial man on the planet, Andrew Tate. That's a very extreme example, but I think that, because in that context, okay, first of all, I was suffering from actual psychosis, but I actually thought he was a nice guy. Like, I wonder if sometimes as well the woman generally thinks that the bad guy is a good person. That can be the other side of it too, because people can't always tell. Like, I think we can think someone's a decent person and they're actually not. It's very hard to tell sometimes. So there's a sense of naivety, there's a sense of like, but I think what you guys seem to be referring to is these women who are like, oh, I love bad boys. And because these kind of women on like TikTok or Instagram, or I guess even women in day-to-day life, they generally do, like, a guy is repeatedly not good to them and they stay with him. I don't understand that. Like, I've been with guys who weren't good to me, but for maybe like 1 or 2 months. I wouldn't be with a guy for a long time if he was bad to me. I might be obsessed with him in my head, but that's my own personal whatever. But I wouldn't be in a relationship with a guy for any prolonged period of time if he was consistently bad to me. I don't understand that, but because also, like, just thinking about it now, I've been in friendships where the female, well, that was probably more when I was younger, so maybe that's not the same. But if you're close with, because children also don't always know. I mean, if you are, how do I say this? Consistently around people who aren't very good to you, but you can't tell they're not good to you. Yeah, that's another thing, I guess. But yeah, no, I think the whole thing about nice guys finish last, I wonder if it applies to women too. I wonder if, like, if a woman is very nice, because like there's this book I've read like 7 times called Why Men Love, I don't want to curse on you. Why Men Love B word, but I'll just say bitches. But yeah, anyway, there's a lot of multiple angles to look at that topic. It assumes the woman is kind of a victim, absolutely, which happens a lot. Sometimes the woman can be as toxic as the bad boy. That's my point. I completely agree. I understand that's what you guys are getting at. I'm very careful in how I phrase things because I never want to come across as like an actual red pillar or someone who's trying to be anti-women. You read Why Men Love Bitches. Yeah, it's an interesting book. I've read it so many times. It actually did not help me at all. I didn't know anything from it, but I found it an interesting read. Because I just like to read. Yeah, I agree though. Like, a lot of the times women are very toxic. I can completely see that. I mean, yeah. I think that, they're like, yeah, if I go back to, say, Sex and the City, Carrie and Big, Carrie is just as toxic as Big. She's very, very toxic. She's a highly dysfunctional woman. She's not self-aware. I mean, I would say they're all a bit dysfunctional, but I think Charlotte is the one. I think Charlotte's the most grounded. I would say Charlotte and Miranda are kind of the most grounded out of the 4. Miranda's a bit nasty, but she does kind of develop and her character gets better. Yeah, because she's with Steve and all that. But yeah, Carrie, she's very, very lacking in self-awareness. She's very emotionally immature. She's very needy. Yeah, she's very toxic. So I completely agree. Women can, and that's the problem. That's the problem with our culture. If you go back to this thing I was talking about earlier, this gynocracy, this gynocentrism, we don't actually look at bad women. We don't look at what, the guy I had on my channel very recently, David Shackleton, nature census, this idea of the feminine shadow. We don't actually look at that. It's a fantastic word. We don't seem to be looking at the collective feminine shadow. We're not looking at bad female behavior. And if we look at it, it's like, oh, Regina George is a hero. Amy Dunn is a hero. I don't know who else. Carrie Bradshaw. Actually, a lot of women I've seen on YouTube do criticize Carrie. But Sex and the City, is still held as like Mr. Biggest toxic. And I don't know, it's like, oh, she's flawed. She's perfectly imperfect. So there's all these women on YouTube who analyze, pop culture and TV. And even if they don't say I'm a feminist, they use kind of feminist leaning language, a feminist leaning angle, which I can't stand. I wish there were more neutral people, or more like, I mean, my thing is obviously not neutral, I'm ideologically obviously anti-feminist, but I want to see more like analysis. Like, oh, there's some good channels like Pure Kino, Movie Flame. I used to watch so many, or still do sometimes, but so many good film and TV channels out there. There's this guy actually, he's kind of crazy called The Theorizer. He's kind of nuts, but he's really critical. I'll be watching a movie and I go on YouTube to analyze the movie, and I just end up doing like a rabbit hole into like the YouTubers, all their videos, if like their videos. But yeah, I do find though, like there's this constant framing of, oh, but when women were oppressed, women this, the position of women. It's a constant thing. And it's just so tied to our feminist gynocentrist bias. It's ridiculous. Yeah, TV tropes is interesting. I mean, I find it way too overwhelming because like everything is tropified. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think that now anything in popular culture is viewed through a feminist lens, which is really exhausting. It's not good. It's not very artistically interesting either. Like there's so many other frameworks to use when looking at a piece of art or a piece of media. If we're just constantly looking at through the lens of, the male gaze, or the women are victims, oh, poor women. Yeah. Yeah. No, I can just sit and talk all day. That's basically what I do. I mean, the thing is as well, because this stuff is so fascinating, like I think this is almost like the backbone of our culture at the moment. When I say our culture, I mean Western culture. I think most people get that, or internet culture, whatever you tell me what it is. Because even I notice like a lot of Americans say like our country, our culture. It's like, hello, I'm not from the US. But I get it. It's a very the internet, especially YouTube, is very American centric. But yeah, like we just seem to be obsessed now with diagnosing anything that negatively affects women as got distracted. You kind of have to separate the wheat from the chaff when you watch media these days. Sex education. I've done this with a few shows like Sex Education and Ted Lasso, but even some media with female main characters. Yeah, so I think I watched a bit of Sex Education. Was it when I was in hospital? Or was it before? But anyway, yeah, I know there's a character Maeve. It's funny because she says she likes complex female characters. I wonder like what she would say about some of the female characters in my books who are like not actually no, scratch that. I wonder what if she say Disney women are complex female characters. I would say they are. I say Disney characters are exceptionally complex female characters. But yeah, no, I know the guy from Sex Education, Asa Butterfield. I actually went to sixth form with him. I used to sit next to him. Um, yeah. I haven't seen it though. It doesn't really interest me. The thing is though, I have seen some very interesting modern shows. Like, oh, I remembered actually, because I did a whole video about my favorite TV shows, and I forgot to mention a show called Dark, which is, I think it's German. That was an excellent show. Excellent. Excellent. Anyway, I'm gonna stay for another couple of minutes because I just feel like talking. But yeah, I think that, like, with television, with film in general, you know, I don't think that looking at anything through a gendered bias overall is good. I don't think it's going to be very helpful. I think that there's one thing to kind of make a story about a woman's journey. Like, there's this author I like a lot. I don't know how to pronounce her surname, but I'm going to guess it's pronounced Moriarty. Her name's Leanne Moriarty, and she writes this kind of fiction I like, contemporary, you could say women's fiction. There's no feminism in her books. I don't see any feminism in her books. It's very much like about women and men and personal difficulties, but I wouldn't label her books as particularly feminist. And me and Janice were talking about this. We were talking about how now anything that is any kind of woman in a successful field now is will actually be this a feminism. Yeah, in India, feminist actress Samantha introduced equal pay in the movie industry. She says this. Oh, I'm a bit confused. She says this is discrimination, but she doesn't do. Okay, I don't understand what it means. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna wrap up. Thank you for everyone who has tuned in today. I might do this again. I might do this like every few months or so, just as a one-off thing, because it's kind of nice to just talk. Because I like to talk. I am a highly, highly extroverted person. So I'm very, very full of energy all the time. But yeah, I will be uploading my next video, which is on our culture's obsession with attractive women. Well, I'm editing it today, and I will be uploading it sometime within the next, probably tomorrow, I imagine. So yeah, I'll be also I'm not going to be filming any videos next Tuesday. I'm going to take that week off because I really, really need to take a bit of a break. So I will probably spread my 2 videos over this week and next week. But yeah, my next stream should be next Tuesday with the usual suspects, so that's good. Final question. You're from which country? I'm from the UK. London, born and raised. Anyway, thank you very much. This is The Rational Female. Goodbye until next time.